Well, no. Well, I just had a very awful nightmare. Let me show you. It all started very long ago. A couple of months by now, in fact, I'm sorry. With an aluminum foil ball, much like this one. I squished it around until it was vaguely head-shaped, and then I added some various miscellaneous body parts to complete the set. For this one, I'll be using mostly Super Sculpey Unliving doll. This is a specifically made clay for zombies. You can probably use it for other things too, though. It's about this firm and about this sticky. So let's bring back Pasta Papa and his little buddy. Oop. And let's get squishing. We need a couple of flat sheets of this material to cover our previous material. So I'm squishing down the material for easier material application. This step is mainly just about covering all of the foil with clay instead, and then I went ahead and did another layer of thinner clay outside of the first layer of clay because I felt like the original clay had gotten a little ugly and I wanted it to look nice on camera. So we'll just do a bunch of squishing and smoothing and squishing and smoothing until we get a very head-shaped head, if I do say so myself. I mean, it's a little featureless for now, but does it look heady? Well, I think so. Let's check it. Oh, that's a head. Heading on the head we need ears, and I made these ears, but they were too small ears, so I'm filling out the ears with more ear. It's sort of just teardropped with 3 butt cheeks and then some smoothing, but twice. And they are gonna go right here. Now her front of her face needs to look a little bit more front-facey, so I added a snout, and then I also added the bangs, which is more teardrops, on top of the head drop. Oh, and I also planted the seed that will become her little scrunchy bun.
Nice shot!
Oi! Personally, I'm wondering where the clip of me putting on the nose went, but here I'm cutting out a hole for the mouth. For my Isabelle, I wanted her to be sort of ripped open on the half side of the face department, so I made a mouth with a lot of tearing on her left cheek. And then I lightly scored out where I wanted the eyes to go, and decided that rather than to work towards symmetry for 6 years, I'm gonna make half of her eyeballs no balls. What I did was I just sort of casually went through the model and added little nooks and crannies where I felt like I wanted her brain to stick out the back. I squished in some pre-baked teeth into her jaw holes. I filled her eye hole with an eyeball and squished in some eyelids, and then I added some crow's feet for that weathered, hard-working businesswoman vibe, along with a signature flesh tear that also comes with a profession. Sculpey sold me this oven-bake adhesive, so I'll gloop on a glob on her head bob and make a scrunchie top that looks like nothing else but a scrunchie top. Now we can doink it back off, give it a bit of a shaping, add some glue, a scrunchie, some glue, and then stab her through the brain. Let's play the age-old family tradition fun game, pin the ear on the dead dog. But hey, that came together pretty alright. Let's scratch up some textures and give her a little bit of a furry feeling, and then offer her a drink. Isabelle takes it strong, but we'll offer her a misting this time. That's it, there you go, you're looking fantastic. The point of brushing on isopropyl alcohol before baking a clay sculpture is that the alcohol sort of melts the top layer of clay and removes any fingerprints. This also works with nail polish remover. Oh, and then I made her body. With everything out of the oven, we remind ourselves to be careful because they can sometimes get hot. But then we push on to build a desk. This is made out of 1 centimeter thick foam core board and some glue. This is just normal plastic glue, white glue. Oh, dang. I'm out. This is not a very well prepared video at all. What? Wait, but there is something in there. Hold on. I gotta check this. What in the blue Well, I'll never... Whoa, my stars. That's not at all what I was supposed to Ugh. Ah, this was a bottle of the other type of sticky. Fresh from Nelson's garden. Anyway, let's glue together our sides of the table to the top of the table, leaving a bit of an overlap because that's how tables do. Oh, and let's save some corner space as well. Now bring out your favorite stick cutter upper and set it to 4. Feed your Nelson's garden stick in it, and alley-hoop. And now you should have 4 equal sized sticks. So gloop up some glue and glue them in place. Because the sides of the foam core board looks like sides of foam core board, I decided to trim the table with coffee stirring sticks. Oh, the VIP's coming. Nope. It's just a stand for the chair. This actually turned out to be a very tricky part of the build because it had to support all of Isabelle. So I made the stand part out of wood covered with clay for structural integrity, and then I made the cushions out of just clay. I wanted the backrest of the chair to be ergonomically curved, and clay on its own has a tendency to not stay curved in the oven, so I made this little cradle out of aluminum foil that I then squished a bottle into to get the shape. So I very daintily squeeged it into its mold, and then I added some nicks and cuts and folds and little imperfections, and lastly I dotted the whole thing with a very coarse egg brush to give it a bit of a texture of fabric, maybe? Let's bake them. You know the old saying, it starts in the oven and ends with a paintbrush. It's time to paint now. So let's do that. Oh. Alright, let's mix up some scrambled eggs. Isabelle is a very off yellow color, which is the worst to paint. Anything yellow is gonna take 40,000 coats. I'm using Folk Art matte acrylics for this, but any acrylic paint should be fine. It's just a matter of the amount of pigment and how many coats you'll have to do. I painted the stand for the chair in a silvery color, and then the cushions in a gray color, and stuck it all to dry. On brand for this build, I'm busting out the Death Pesto, which is PVA glue and water and black paint, and I'm coating the entire table in this to get a uniform surface for the paint to adhere to. And then I'm gonna cut this sponge. I'm gonna cut this sponge apart. I'm gonna rip this sponge apart and use it to dab on the paint to avoid paint strokes. Hoo-wee, we sure are in the middle of a heat wave right now as I'm painting this desk. I hope the hot humidity doesn't... Oh no. The hot humidity made the paint not dry properly and also kept splitting. But that's okay, we can just paint the desk 2 more times instead. Okay, let's paint the body instead. This is more fun. I like the tiny details. Now, let's try to use some snow and some paint and some water to make dirt for a plant pot. It didn't work very well. Ugh. Bringing back the egg brush, I had this genius idea of brushing on fur with the coarse bristles, and here you can clearly see none of it. But filling in the white parts with, shocker, I know, white, we are moving on to detailing. Let's just paint on some shadows on her cardigan, just give it a bit of a pattern so that there's something going on. No one's gonna look at it real close. Well, I mainly just want to paint these toe beans. Okay, let's do a layer of blood. We'll just mix some red paint with very little blue and very little black and a lot of water and dab it on sparingly. Very sparingly. Spare that blood. Nice. Now let that dry. Speaking of dry, let's dry brush her cardigan to bring out some of the ridge details and then wet brush her face. Juxtapositionally known as a wash, this is a layer of darker, watered down paint to give a layer of shadows and grime and just a bit of life to the model. Then I'm adding the lighter part of her snout and the darker part of her scrunchy part and her ear parts. And finally, a dry brush of basically the entire model. A dry brush is using very, very little paint on a very, very dry brush and just sort of briefly thinking about the model whilst gazing at it intently. Let's put some more blood. Let's put some more blood. For the backrest of the chair, I made this legal U-turn out of aluminium modeling wire, and then I'm gluing it to the backrest, like so. And while the glue is drying, let's make a crossword. Now what would Isabelle want? Classic. Care for a top-up? There you are. Okay, now we can glue on the backrest to the rest of the chair. Unfortunately, the chair isn't good. But we can make it gooder if we just break it apart. Now let's make a little hole in this little stick of our little stand and fill it with an even littler stick. Then we can thread the little seat on top of the little stick. And if you haven't guessed where this is going, look away, please. Welcome back, nothing bad has happened, but let's scratch up the table where we want to place things so that the glue has a bit more teeth to adhere to. If you're gluing flat paint to flat paint, it has a tendency to come off and take the paint with it, which we don't necessarily want in this case. And for the finishing touches, who wants to get funky with some resin? It's clear and hard. Now this UV resin hardens under UV light, so I'm gonna put some on her eyeball and then shine it with a UV torch, and then do the same for her nose, and that'll make them nice and shiny forever. Beautiful, darling, beautiful. It's like you've just licked your eyeball. Now let's make blood. I don't have red, but I had orange and purple. It made bad. Acrylic paint, save me! I don't know if you can mix acrylic paint with resin, but I'm gonna make ketchup and then add some of that brown sauce from before, and it'll make for a pretty good blood, I think. Look at that. So let's gloop that on and be careful not to get any on her hair, and then we can shine it with our torch as we manipulate it around. That way we can get some chunky bits that'll look like, I don't know, bits of meat or sinew or something gross. Ew. Excuse me, ma'am, you have a bit of tanuki stuck in your teeth? I'll get it. There you go. Now let's spend a thought on the thinker and give the brain the same juice. And why not fill the cup with it as well? What is she drinking? Who knows? Gross. But this will harden shiny and look wet. I also added a little poster on the front of the desk because I thought it looked a little bit empty. And the pièce de résistance. Whoop, she found her sock. Let's do beauty shots. That took some time. I'm sorry, this video took 5 years to make. But I gotta extend a special thank you and a warmest welcome to our newest Patreons, Kat Karen and Ashton Albright. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I mean, all of you, not just aforementioned new Patreons. And if you did, then that's good. I hope to see you back for the next one. If you have any ideas for other creatures that I could spookify, other cute things from cute games or cute movies that I could spookify, that would be fun. I had a lot of fun spookifying and adding blood and stuff, and I would like to do more spooky stuff. But for now, that's it. See you next time.